The story begins by revealing a black sunset against a crimson sky in a desert landscape. Monsters were already flooding the area, and they were ready to devour anyone. We then see our main protagonist screaming at the top of his lungs as he grips a small dagger. With him, he directed the attack towards this monster who looked like a giant worm with a lot of sharp teeth. In a closer perspective, the monster let out a cry as Armik successfully landed his attack, although he nearly lost his arm along the process. His hands trembled as he realized what could have just happened if he hesitated even for a second. A few moments later, the monster had finally collapsed beside him, and he let out a sigh of relief. He caught his breath as he tried to wipe the blood of the monster that was splattered on his face. Armik then uttered that he can now finally defeat a monster using his own power. But his thought was interrupted as someone called him unawakened. His attention was then directed elsewhere. Right in front of him was a gruesome battlefield. Corpses of monsters were already piling up, and humanity continued their hunt. The man that called him earlier then shouted on what he was doing. He addressed Armik as a mere porter and commanded him to just do his job and collect the drops from the monsters. The guy beside him agreed. Our F-rank porter was then flustered, and he immediately apologized. He was reminded that a fool like him should not space out around. The two men had already turned around to proceed on their hunt, but they still commented that the porter was such a useless bastard. Our MC's expression turned serious as he was reminded what's his role in this cruel world. The emotion that he felt was overwhelming, and the only word he could utter for this situation was, fuck. In this world he lived in, everything changed after the abyss was discovered. It's another dimension where monsters that only existed in fantasies actually existed. And after the discovery of the mysterious place, people have started to awaken transcendental powers. Using those powers, they defeated monsters and continued to explore the abyss. As a result, the conventional method of evaluating individuals shifted away from assessing their personality or effort, but on their awakening rank. If someone's awakening was high enough, they were guaranteed to live a good life. As Arma continued to check the corpses of the monsters that were defeated, he got this purple gem. He then remembered how the abyss changed his life, not for the better, but for worse. He spent his life working as a porter because he's unawakened and has never even opened a status window. At the age of 35, he knew that the comfortable life that he was dreaming of was still unreachable as long as he's not awakened yet. Shifting his focus, Armik turned around to inform the players that he already got the loot, but his expression changed as soon as he saw what's in front of him. The once battlefields that were full of monster corpses were changed into the bodies of the players being piled up. All the humans that came up with him were dead, even the guys who just berated him a while ago. While wondering what the hell just happened, his expression turned more grim and horrified as he heard an ominous voice that told him that he was the only one left. He then turned around and saw the gigantic monster that loomed over him. This one was different from the usual monsters that they hunted from the abyss. This formidable creature, known as Asmodeus, was categorized as a SSS ranked monster, signifying its exceptional level of power and threat. Arma knew that this was now a lost cause. There's no way he could survive against one of the most powerful beings in the abyss. But he still opted to muster his strength and dash towards it. The dark arms of Asmodeus then moved and went towards him, and in an instant, his arm was hit by a powerful force that made it instantly detached. As soon as his mind caught up on what just happened, Armik screamed in pain and fell on the ground. But even then, he still did his best to shift his focus and look at Asmodeus so he could understand what just happened to him. His eyes widened in sheer shock as he realized something. Asmodeus was already standing in front of him, and the SSS rank monster directed a ray of purple light towards our MC. This guy had no way of dodging the attack as it approached his forehead. All he could do now was to watch and wait for his death, while his blood dripped down. He continued to stare at the red, menacing eyes of Asmodeus, wondering if this is how he's going to die. Tears fell from both of his eyes as he realized that this was really happening. His end was near. His life was already flashing before his eyes as he recalled the car accident that killed his parents, the time when he was bullied in school, and how he lived a life of being ignored just because he was unawakened. Even more so, his heart was then filled with regret and anger as he realized that he will now be ending his life after only carrying around cargo. He thought that he was such a shitty loser. Arma clenched his teeth as more blood dripped from his face. It was as if he was already crying tears of it. The scene then shifted as it focused on one of the droplets. The solitary drop then made a transformation. It shifted its color and started emitting a bright light. A vortex of light then appeared, and it showed that all the awakening conditions had been satisfied. The horrifying scene that Armek was seeing a while ago changed into what looked like the vast universe. A white figure also appeared out of nowhere. The F-rank porter then stared at the mysterious being that was descending from the golden stairs. Things were progressing much quicker than his brain could process, and it got him all confused. RMC's gaze got fixed on the white being that was now in front of him. He then turned around as he recalled that moments ago he was just about to die from Asmodeus, but right now he was staring at his own self that had fallen on the ground. As he stared more intently, he noticed that the triple S rank monster had stopped moving. The white figure let out a laugh as he was amused by RMC's intense focus on Asmodeus. Stopping, the porter then shifted his attention towards the white figure being and asked about his identity. His question made the white figure smile, and he introduced himself as King. But he told Armek that he doesn't need to worry about that. While sitting on his golden throne, King spoke again and revealed that he shall now be bestowing an authority onto the F-rank porter. From now on, Armek struggled to really grasp what was really happening. He wondered what the so-called king was talking about, even mentioning words like authority. King noticed his hesitation and told him that it's not good to be so distrustful, which alerted him. The king went on to explain that he admired the man's tenacity and strong will, which was the reason for choosing him for this special opportunity. As King held his hand in front of the human, he reminded him that this was the only chance he would ever get. Armek was still confused and tried to ask the king what was really happening, but his questions were left unanswered. But the king assured him that if he waits patiently, the day where he will understand everything will come. A white blinding light then enveloped RMC's body, and the last words he heard were, "Let's meet again." Suddenly, a monster materialized out of thin air. The white figure made mention of a key in the midst of this unexpected development. As the man slowly regained consciousness, he began to hear a voice which disparagingly stated that a bastard was still sleeping. He started opening his eyes as this voice told him how he is ignoring them, and this voice decided that it's time to wake him up. As he fully opened his eyes, he was met with the sight of a smiling man who greeted him with a warm good morning. However, to his shock, the guy that was smiling abruptly slapped him. After delivering the forceful slap, the man inquired, "Are you awake now?" The man who had slapped him, along with two others, appeared to be familiar. He grabbed Armek and stated that he only listened when given a good beating. It was then that the man recognized this individual as B. Hyuksu. He couldn't help but wonder how the person who had been a relentless bully during their high school days was now standing before him. The bully referred to him as Taehyun and questioned why he wasn't responding. Confusion washed over him as he had been certain that he was in the abyss just moments ago. As he received another harsh slap, he couldn't help but wonder if the newfound authority he had been granted his eyes held a distracted look as if his mind was entirely consumed by the strange events happening around him. He noticed a notification status displayed on his side which stated his name as Kim Taehyun, his age as 19, and revealed his rank as F, along with information about his skill. He was taken aback by the appearance of the status window, particularly when he realized that it indicated he was only 19 years old. Realizing that the status window indicated that it had been 16 years since he was 19, he couldn't help but break into a smile. He burst into hearty laughter. The man's unexpected and prolonged laughter unnerved the bully. The bully inquired about what was wrong with him and asserted that he must have gone mad. Yet the man continued to laugh uncontrollably. The bully, increasingly agitated by the man's laughter, declared that he truly seemed to want to be hurt, further escalating the tension in the situation. In a sudden turn of events, Kim Taehyun delivered a powerful punch to the bully, striking him with significant force. The two other bullies were left in a state of shock. Kim Taehyun, despite his previous laughter, continued to smile as realization dawned on him. His smile persisted because he had come to the realization that he had also awakened. The four of them were still on the rooftop, while the bully named Hyuksu lay on the ground. Kim Taehyun rubbed his eyes, and the two other bullies launched forward to attack him. They had their own unique powers, as one wielded fire on his hand, while the other bully's hand was frozen. The bully tried to hit him with his fire, but he successfully dodged, and then he punched back while he kicked the other bully in the stomach. He had a serious expression on his face as he recalled that for 35 years, almost all of his entire life as an unawakened, he did everything he could from fundamental physical training to study all the information about the abyss and monsters and learn different skills, even interpersonal combat skills such as boxing, kendo, and archery. That's why he's confident that he'll lose to the untrained bullies. The two bullies advanced towards him in an attempt to land an attack. He fought back and easily landed attacks on them, as he claimed them to be someone who doesn't even know the basics. The bullies fell to the ground, and Taehyun caught his breath. He rubbed his knuckles as he looked down on those defeated students. As he smiled and uttered how he needs to take physical training again, B. Hyuksu surprised him when he uttered, "What a load of bullshit." Taehyun saw Hyuksu standing up, while Hyuksu expressed his shock at how Taehyun had awakened, and he cursed at him. Hyuksu unleashed his ability, and his body turned into a sturdy-looking stone as he expressed his anger and informed Taehyun that he will be dead. Hyuksu's ability is called Stone Skin at rank C. This ability strengthens the body with stones surging from the skin. Hyuksu tried to punch Taehyun. Taehyun successfully evaded that stone fist with fast movement. Hyuksu launched another attack, almost hitting Taehyun. Taehyun was surprised to witness that Hyuksu had leapt in front of him in an attempt to smash him with both of his fists. This attack caused a huge explosion, making debris and dust fly everywhere. As the area started to become clear of dust, it could be seen that Hyuksu was standing still with his fists still in contact with the ground. In a flash, Taehyun was behind him to launch an attack. Upon sensing this, he turned to see his backside, and immediately Taehyun came in contact with his face with a strong force. Taehyun's other fist was ready for another punch, but something had shocked him. Hyuksu was staring back at him with a smirk, asking him what he's doing. Hyuksu seemed unaffected by the attack, since his face had also turned into stone. Taehyun noted how he hurt his hand by hitting Hyuksu. Hyuksu launched a counterattack, successfully coming into Taehyun's body, and that attack blasted Taehyun away. Taehyun crashed on the ground with a huge impact that made the ground. He coughed blood, and one side of his head is bleeding profusely. Hyuksu confidently walked towards him and mocked him by saying that he should have known his own limits, with a smug look. Hyuksu insulted him by calling him a lowly, unawakened bastard. He asked him if he's going to run like he used to do all the time, or if he is going to choose to struggle with his newly awakened skill. While laying on the ground, Taehyun remembered that all awakenings possess a skill and a rank. It starts with rank F, who is not far from being a normal human, and the highest rank is S, who are akin to being monsters. The physical abilities and skills of the awakened rise exponentially. But Taehyun knew that what he possesses is a skill unknown and unheard of, but it's the worst of rank. The notification screen shows that he's at rank F with a skill called Predation. Therefore, he couldn't help but admit that he had no chance of winning against Hyuksu, who's a C rank. But for some reason, he felt differently. Hyuksu stopped in his tracks when he noticed something unusual. Taehyun's injured hand is covered with a fiery red glow. As he stood up, his body seemed to be engulfed in a sinister aura. He declared that he doesn't feel like he's going to lose. Surprisingly, his aura grew stronger. It covered the area in a red and black hue, while a gust of red wind swirled around him like it was about to start a tornado. Hyuksu couldn't help but wonder what the hell was in front of him, with a strong wind blowing towards his way. Hyuksu couldn't believe that Taehyun actually awakened. His disbelief stems from the idea that, for him, Taehyun is a lowly person. Taehyun looked at his hands as they emitted smoke like red hue, and he couldn't help but wonder if that is the skill called Predation. He felt the magic move according to his will. He heard Hyuksu declare that he doesn't know what's happening, so he gazed at him with his red glowing eyes. Hyuksu advanced to attack him, with his mind filled with the idea that everything will be over once he killed the caster of the magic. Taehyun extended his red smoke-covered hand and released a powerful attack in the form of several circular lights. Hyuksu was surprised by this, especially since it overpowered his ability, which made him shed the stones from his body. As his fist came in contact with Taehyun's hand, Taehyun seemed to release more of his power. Red thread-like hue swirled around his body as his hand emitted a bright light. Taehyun's face looked serious and focused as he willed his power to his liking. His eyes became fierce as the battle continued, and Hyuksu made loud noises as he did his best not to lose the fight. But his efforts were in vain, as the stones covering his body fully disappeared. The students from across the rooftop seemed to be oblivious to the intense battle until a great red tornado covered the whole sky. The explosion caused thick smoke to cover the whole area. Along with it, the debris is flying everywhere. As the smoke slowly disappears, Taehyun is also slowly fading away. The red hue that covered his body was no longer there, while Hyuksu looked like he was roasted, with his face covered in black dirt and his eyes rolled back into his head. Taehyun watched every second as Hyuksu fell to the ground. He didn't leave unscathed, as he appeared extremely exhausted from the battle. A notification screen informed him that predation had been completed, and as a result of preying upon a target, his rank went up to E. Stones started covering Taehyun's hand, and the notification screen informed him that he now had a new skill. Taehyun's arm had looked like Hyuksu's arm earlier. This is because the stone skin has been registered as his new skill. At the school clinic, the nurse was surprised when Kim Taehyun entered with the 2 bullies in his arms, and the other one was placed lying down by the door. Despite looking like he was about to pass out, Taehyun politely and calmly greeted the nurse. She couldn't help but let out a scream from the confusion and shock. After the fight ended, Taehyun still initiated bringing everyone to the clinic, and with the nurse's healing ability, she treated Taehyun. When she asked how they got injured, Taehyun naturally lied to her, saying that they just rolled down the stairs. Surprisingly, he managed to deceive her as she did not probe any further. After the treatment, he walked on the streets as his thoughts wandered. He felt good that he had awakened and finally got revenge on Hyuksu, but there was still a problem. Taehyun was portrayed in the center, while a branch of a tree with thorns in a spiral shape was on his backdrop. This seemed to be his ability, predation, which was one of his concerns at the moment. His rank, which he barely got to change after training for his entire life, instantly increased after a single fight. His rank may be an F rank, but the power exceeded that of a C rank. In addition to that, he could even steal the skills of the opponents that he had defeated. As he ascended the stairs, he started wondering why the white figure called King gave him that power, and even made him go back in time. Countless questions filled his head, but despite that, with a fierce look, he knew that there's one thing that he needed to do. He stood at the gate of a 3-story house, determined to find out more about predation. He smiled as he uttered that it had been a while since he came home after his parents had passed away. He stayed with his uncle. He pictured his uncle and his family, and his smile grew wider. He entered the house as he planned his search for information, while his uncle was out. As the living room came into view, he was shocked by what he had witnessed. A man was sitting in a single chair, while 2 people with their faces covered stood on each side, and a boy was crouched on the floor cleaning up scattered money. This boy seemed surprised and in panic as he uttered, "Kim Taehyun." Taehyun also called out to the kid named Hwang Yi-young and asked why the boy wasn't in school. Then his attention was drawn somewhere as he focused on the money scattered on the ground. He couldn't help but think of Yi-young as a bastard, because even before he regressed, he remembered how Yi-young hung around with the other bullies to the point that he took all the money in the house and caused a huge fuss. Taehyun watched Yi-young whisper to the guy who just stood up. Taehyun realized that a major incident from the past was actually happening today. One of the guys voiced out that he was actually wondering who just entered, but it was just Yi-young's cousin. He told Taehyun that if he didn't want to get beaten up, he should not get involved and just quietly pass by. This guy assured Taehyun that they would just take what they need and leave, and they proceeded to insult Taehyun by patting his head and calling him an unawakened older brother. Taehyun stared at him with a blank expression, and a sinister smile crept on his face as he commented how perfect the situation is and declared that he wants to test something. This confused the guy who was mocking him earlier. Instantly, Taehyun punched the guy with brute force, making him cough up as his body collided with the ground. Yi-young and the 2 hooded guys were shocked to see this, and were instantly in an alarmed stance. Taehyun went on top of the guy to land another attack. As his hand was about to reach the guy's face, the guy tried to stop it by screaming "wait." But this did not stop Taehyun as he proceeded to use his skill, predation. The 3 other guys in the room continued to watch the scenario in front of them. Taehyun smiled in anticipation. His expression changed into disappointment when he received the notification that the predation function was inaccessible. The guy beneath him looked horrified and confused when Taehyun suddenly froze in disappointment and confusion. Sweat dripped down his face as the reality that the predation didn't activate started sinking in. The guy took this as an opportunity to fight back as he raised his fist, and with a strong impact, it landed on Taehyun's face. Taehyun groaned loudly as his back collided on the floor. The guy screamed at him to die, while the other two covered guys assumed a combative stance. They used their ability, with one guy having a C-rank bind skill, and the other one releasing his C-rank poison skill, and the leader activated his C-rank bleed skill in perfect synchrony. The three attacks were about to close in on Taehyun, who was struggling to keep himself up. Once he was able to lift up his head, he was surprised to see this, and a loud bright light exploded from inside the house towards the outside. Purple smoke covered the entire room. The guy who appeared to be the leader expressed how he pretended to be awakened. He commented that Taehyun should know his place. His confident demeanor turned into shock and confusion as he witnessed the scene in front of him. Amidst the smoke, he could see the silhouette of Taehyun standing still, and a notification screen indicated that the usage of skill has been detected. Another notification showed that bind, poison, and bleed had been confirmed. These attacks covered the area, but Taehyun's body remained still as it glowed with bright light. A notification appeared containing the information that due to a mysterious power, resistance was successful. Taehyun's hand started to get covered in stones while he smiled and commented how his skill unexpectedly did not work, but then it neutralized skills out of the blue. He declared that he still doesn't know what's going on, but he focused on the leader of the guys, who still had a surprised expression on his face. Immediately, the leader was brought down to the ground by Taehyun's stone-covered hand. Kim Taehyun seemed to be pleased with how strong his power is, while he had an ecstatic look on his face. The leader's face was damaged, and he even lost a tooth. Taehyun, looking neat and confident, stared down at the defeated men lying on the floor in front of him. He seemed pleased with the two things he had learned because of them. One of the things he learned is that the status window that's only visible for the awakened had detailed information, but not all of it is displayed. He was aware of having sufficient mana, yet predation didn't activate, suggesting that factors beyond mana influenced its use. Additionally, an undisclosed passive effect of the predation skill exists, capable of countering skills related to abnormal conditions like poisoning or bleeding, although this isn't mentioned in the skill description. With a hand on his jaw, he thought of gradually confirming whether his speculations are correct. His thoughts were diverted to the pressing concern at the moment. He asked what Yi-young was doing when he saw him bowing to him with great enthusiasm despite his sweat and snot dripping. Yi-young declared that after he saw his cousin's impressive side, he is reflecting on his actions. He then asked for Taehyun's forgiveness. Taehyun remained silent with a deadpan expression on his face. Yi-young proceeded to tell him that whether it's licking his shoes or barking like a dog, he'll do whatever Taehyun wants him to do. Deep inside, Taehyun saw Yi-young as pathetic. He knew that his cousin was a damn fox, but he didn't realize that it was to that extent. He had a disgusted look on his face when he heard Yi-young bark like a dog. He didn't plan to give more energy into this since the urgent issue isn't his cousin. There was another incident that would happen that day. The said incident would have to do something about a red humongous entity with 4 eyes. This entity is covering the sky, but people in the busy street don't seem to notice. Taehyun informed Yi-young that he will forgive him. This made Yi-young enthusiastic and happy, but Taehyun continued that he wants something in return, and that is for Yi-young to accompany him to finish a task in a restricted place. Dark clouds covered the sky. The entrance to this place has signage which warns that the area is restricted and only authorized personnel are allowed. 1 man in a suit and 2 women are inside the area and occupied with a scenario in front of them. They realized that it was a gate break. They watched how monsters showed up from a barrier. Gate break is a phenomenon where monsters appear as a path to the abyss suddenly opens up. If left unattended, a dungeon disaster will occur. The man commented on how it has been 10 years since the last dungeon break. He explained that the gate was suddenly created, so the monsters came swarming. One of the women expressed that judging from the monsters, if they don't do anything, the dungeon disaster is only moments away. The other woman panicked and asked if they should get the neighborhood areas to evacuate. Someone answered that there's no need for that. It was the man in a suit. He confidently explained that they already have his skill, B-ranked barrier, on their side. This barrier is shown to prevent monsters from passing through their world. The man continued to explain that the gate break is only at C rank. While he explained that the monsters are forcefully trying to break through the barrier, the man added that since it's just C rank, it would mean that the monsters that come out of the gate are also C rank, indicating that the monsters are not strong enough to break through the barrier. The monsters continued to persist in breaking the barrier so much so that the barrier started having cracks. The man continued to explain something, but he stopped mid-sentence as the barrier behind him broke, and the monsters started getting out. The two women witnessed this and called out to their team leader with a hint of concern. The man immediately turned around, and with a single kick, he was able to defeat several monsters at once. He told the women that as B rankers, they are more capable of handling it. With his attack, he was able to cut off a monster's head. Yi-young ran fast as he asked the sir if everything should be alright. He tried to convince Taehyun that since he knew the control personnel were there, everything should be alright. Taehyun told him to stop calling him sir. Taehyun confirmed that Yi-young is right since the gate break's initial mana estimate is C rank. On the other hand, the control personnel are B rank, so there won't be any issues against C rank opponents. Yi-young enthusiastically told him that it was exactly what he said. But Taehyun revealed that everything's okay if it's actually a C rank dungeon. This revelation shocked and horrified Yi-young. A pile of dead monsters' bodies has been scattered in the restricted area. The man in the suit inspected the bodies while thinking how strange the situation was. He couldn't fathom how the low-rank monsters pierced through his B-rank barrier. A thought suddenly came to his mind. The possibility that the mana overflowing in the area is actually above his rank. One of the women called his attention to inform him of something unusual in the gate. They saw several looking monsters exiting the gate, and among these is one humongous monster with several sharp teeth. They continued to observe this monster as it kept pushing through the barrier, and the monster opened its wide mouth to let out a horrifying roar. The man's eyes widened in shock. He asked what that thing was, yet the monster let out another loud roar as it fully broke the barrier, and more monsters passed through the barrier with it. The giant monster is being so loud with its roar. This monster is called a giant ogre, and it's a rank monster. The man had a horrified expression on his face as he realized that the gate break is not C rank, but it was actually in a rank. In a split second, flames engulfed his vision, loud explosions happened consecutively, and the area was covered in flames. Yi-young continued to talk while running. He assumed Taehyun was right, but he couldn't shake the idea that it's ridiculous. He asked his cousin how he knew such a thing. Taehyun only answered in his mind. He couldn't tell him that he had already gone through this before he regressed. Yi-young told him, aside from the fact that they haven't seen the monsters and an evacuation order wasn't even issued, Taehyun answered intuition. This confused Yi-young. Taehyun explained that his intuition says so, but Yi-young has caught on to his lie. Yi-young was telling his cousin not to fool him, but he stopped mid-sentence as they heard a loud scream. In front of them are humans running for their lives as the monsters chased them. The people told them to run because there had been a gate break. More people screamed and asked for help because of the terrifying scene in front of him. Yi-young turned pale and his mind went blank. Taehyun remained calm and asked him if he remembered what to do. He then urged him to do it. Yi-young hesitated and asked what would happen to his cousin. His eyes grew wide. Taehyun told him that he will get rid of those monsters and be right behind him. Taehyun walked towards the monsters as his body was starting to be covered with stones. Meanwhile, a large tall building is being lit by several lights from different angles. A man looking over the city lights admitted that the situation is escalating quickly. He explained that the gate break that was thought to be C rank turned out to be in a rank. They can't expect reinforcements since others are busy in dungeon conquests and abyss exploration. He looked at the person that he was talking to and revealed that the only solution is an awakened a rank with a hint of desperation. He told this person that he's the only hope and requested this person's help. He called the person On Hyunsu, the Blade of Lunacy. He's in a rank awakened. This person had tears falling from his eyes as he bit his lip with determination evident in his eyes. He told everyone to hang in there as he will come to them soon. A status window indicates that his special skill is 8th grade syndrome. A monster can be seen being hit on the head, and then another monster is hit on its face, and another one has been knocked out by Kim Taehyun. The last monster that he punched had fallen to the ground along with other dead bodies of monsters. He extended his hand, and a red sinister aura started glowing, and in just one swift move as he unleashed a red tornado-like attack, several monsters were ripped to shreds. He had a smug look on his face as he continued using his powers. He also seemed pleased to have confirmed his theory that the cause of Predation's failure is based on fatigue. His current fatigue is at 52%, and if fatigue passes 70%, his skills won't activate. Most skills are activated based on the usage of mana, but that doesn't mean that it's the only thing to think about. That's because fatigue also plays a major factor. Fatigue increases if skills are used or there's physical activity, and the higher it gets, the more power of the skill decreases, and the heavier the physical body gets. He finds it unfortunate that there are several factors to consider. However, Taehyun discovered that if he absorbs dead monsters, he can recover his mana without having to spend any. This is because the target's life activity has stopped, so mana will no longer be consumed. And with that, he successfully completes Predation and recovers his mana. He smiled at the thought that there's even more good news. His rank has changed to D. His Predation and Stone Skin both went up to D for me. With this, he concluded that the more he uses Predation, the more that he can grow. He can already imagine that if it continues at that rate, he can become S rank or even SS rank. Aside from that, he entertained the possibility that he'll be the first as rank. After clearing the area with monsters, he declared that he's done and will head back to where Yi Young is. He wasn't able to finish his sentence because of what he sensed from behind him. In an instant, there was a huge monster falling down where he's standing. This monster is being defeated by a man with a golden sword. This isn't just any monster, it was the Arank ogre. The man with the sword called it a dirty monster and vowed to make it pay for all the people that it had killed. This man declared that himself On Hyunsu, the warrior of justice, will be the judge of its end. He declared this with all enthusiasm while tears were falling down from his eyes. Taehyun seemed to be unamused with the childish declaration. The ogre roared as it lifted its fist in the air, while On Hyunsu anticipated the attack. On Hyunsu, with his eyes filled with determination, lifted his sword and showered the ogre with several diamond-like blades of light. The attack was so powerful that it formed an explosion in the middle of the city. Taehyun was astonished by what he just witnessed. He couldn't believe that the man easily defeated an Arank monster. He assumed that the man is the Aranked Awakened who single-handedly solved the break before he regressed. He knew the man was the Blade of Lunacy, On Hyunsu, and he just confirmed that the man is as strong as what the rumors say. On Hyunsu smiled and made a goofy expression as he declared that the idiotic monster died at the hands of his Justice Sword. Seeing this, Taehyun couldn't deny that the rumors that On Hyunsu is stupid are correct. As he continued to gaze at On Hyunsu, he wondered why he suddenly appeared in the area since before he regressed, On Hyunsu was engaged in a bloody battle with a giant ogre on the other side of the city. On Hyunsu is focused on praying for the citizens who passed away to find peace. Taehyun continued to have several thoughts in his mind as he watched On Hyunsu. But instantly, as the notification window appeared indicating a skill was sensed, he felt a horrifying presence. On Hyunsu was stabbed in the middle of the chest by a bald man behind him. He coughed up blood as he uttered, "What?" with a sinister grin. The man exclaimed as he had finally caught On Hyunsu. A vast area of the city has been damaged. Meanwhile, a marketplace of clothing seemed to be unaffected. Yi Young observed the nurse who was sleeping on the couch. The nurse seemed to be oblivious to the chaos outside or to the presence of another person. Yi Young perspired as he asked himself if what he's going to do is okay. He recalled his conversation with Taehyun. He was informed that a lot of people will die, and one of those people is their school nurse, Choi Naeong. Taehyun informed him that the nurse will die because she focused on relief activities rather than evacuating. Taehyun asked Yi Young if he can put people to sleep with his sleep skill, and Yi Young confirmed this. He was then given an instruction to put the nurse to sleep and evacuate her to a safe place, and Taehyun declared that he will handle the rest. As he continued to watch Choi Naeong, Yi Young wondered how his cousin knew all about those things all of a sudden. A thought crossed his mind. He judged this thought as nonsense, but he couldn't fully shake it off since it's the only possible explanation. His blood rushed with the idea that his cousin awakened to a skill to see the future. He exclaimed how seeing the future is so cool. An imaginary Taehyun with a crystal ball and cloak tries to say no. Yi Young chose to think that nothing will go wrong. Meanwhile, Taehyun can only curse upon seeing the scene before him. On Hyun-soo is clutching his chest as he comes face to face with the man who stabbed him. Taehyun couldn't help but think how it all went wrong. On Hyun-soo demanded for the man to declare his identity. The man had a creepy expression as he commented how On Hyun-soo is still alive after being stabbed in a vital point. He remarked how their ranks are in a different league. The man told On Hyun-soo that it makes the hunting fun. This man is called Han Sang-do, a B-ranked villain with a stealth skill. Those awakened who commit crimes are called villains, and B-ranked Han Sang-do is one of those. He is a homicidal maniac who, during the gate break, went around murdering people for his own thrill. Taehyun couldn't understand the situation since before he regressed, On Hyun-soo and Han Sang-do never met. He started to wonder if the future has changed because of him. On Hyun-soo got enraged after knowing that he is a villain. He drew out his sword and vowed to punish the villain with his own hands. On Hyun-soo stopped in the middle of it when he heard the ogre groaning. His and Han Sang-do's attention were drawn to where the ogre was. The ogre growled loudly as it launched a powerful attack towards them. It made a louder noise to express its anger. On Hyun-soo was caught off guard at the sight of the giant ogre. Han Sang-do laughed. He seemed to be amused with the regeneration ability of the rank monster. The ogre raised its fist again in preparation for another attack. His fist came in contact with the ground, and it caused a massive explosion. Fortunately, On Hyun-soo and Han Sang-do were able to evade this since the ogre is wreaking havoc. Han Sang-do had decided to leave On Hyun-soo's defeat in the hands of the ogre. Han Sang-do's attention is diverted to another person. He came face to face with Kim Taehyun and commented how they had a spectator earlier. He seemed thrilled with the idea of having another prey. Then he decided to launch an attack on Taehyun, who seemed to be caught off guard. His weapon came close to Taehyun's neck as he screamed for him to die. Han Sang-do expected his blade to cut Taehyun's head, so he was surprised when Taehyun's neck was covered in stone. Taehyun smirked at him and called him a moron. Then he launched a powerful kick towards Han Sang-do. Han Sang-do seemed annoyed to figure out that the person in front of him was awakened. Taehyun addressed him as B-rank villain Han Sang-do, and this made him pay close attention. Taehyun asked him if he was the lunatic who's going around committing murder using the stealth skill. He smiled at him and expressed that he feels great for running into him. His stone-covered arm clashed with Han Sang-do's blade. Han Sang-do seemed to enjoy attacking Taehyun consecutively. On the other hand, Taehyun looked serious while he countered Han Sang-do's blade with his arm. This pattern of fighting continued. Han Sang-do uses his blades to attack while Taehyun protects himself using his stone-covered arms, and then he will launch a counterattack. They both took a step back. Han Sang-do commented that Taehyun is skilled enough to be confident. He looked at him while he made a remark that it's unexpected how blades would be useless against him. He went on to tell him that he doesn't know how Taehyun knew about him, but he shouldn't conclude that he has a chance of winning just because his blades are not working against him. Taehyun was shocked to hear that. It's as if Han Sang-do knew his thoughts. Han Sang-do gave him advice that he should know that the world doesn't go according to his plans. Han Sang-do disappeared from his sight. Taehyun instantly knew that he used the stealth skill. He got into a combat stance in preparation for the hidden enemy. He instantly turned to look at his backside. He punched the air and declared that Han Sang-do's attacks are useless against him. Unbeknownst to him, Han Sang-do was actually behind him. He was caught off guard when he revealed himself and asked him if he's sure about what he just said. He instantly turned to block the blade. Unexpectedly, his hand bled. He was surprised to see that his stone-covered hand was bleeding. Han Sang-do laughed at him. Han Sang-do is preparing for another attack while he asks Taehyun if he knew about the number of guys that he hunted that were just like him. He's pertaining to guys that made a mistake by thinking that their skill is invincible. He asked him if he's flustered to run away now that his weakness has been exposed. He cut Taehyun from all sides. Taehyun clenched his teeth as he endured the consecutive attacks that rained on him. Han Sang-do told him that he should understand that all skills have weaknesses. With his last attack, Han Sang-do left Taehyun bleeding from different parts of his body. The blood was scattered on the floor. Kim Taehyun was catching his breath. Deep inside him, he started to realize the flaw of the stone skin skill. He now understood that the stone skins are not ideal to totally block the attacks, since unbearable shock would crush the stone, and the cursed part would be replaced with the formation of a stone of remarkably lower durability. It dawned on him that Han Sangdo was actually aiming for that since the start. Upon gazing at Han Sangdo, he had a menacing aura, and his eyes appeared to be really intimidating. But Taehyun was still able to smile because of what he learned, that hand-to-hand fight is still doable even against a B-ranked opponent. With that, he can say that his physical abilities aren't those of an average D-rank level. He asked Han Sangdo if they should end the fight now. Confusion washed over Han Sangdo's face. He started laughing and mockingly asked Taehyun if he went mad after being driven to a corner. He advanced toward Taehyun at full speed. Taehyun asked him if he knew why he wanted to meet him, but Han Sangdo chose to dismiss him. Instantly, a red hue was reflected on Han Sangdo's wide eyes. He witnessed Taehyun using his power as Taehyun revealed that his intention was to take his stealth skill. Han Sangdo wondered about the wicked mana that he felt. He got annoyed to know that Taehyun was hiding that, but it seemed like he's not threatened at all. He laughed and even called him an idiot. He activated his stealth skill as he feels confident that he can't hit him when he can't even see him. But Taehyun seemed to be unfazed. Instead, he reminded him of what he said earlier, that all skills have weaknesses. Taehyun seemed to realize something after he had devoured monsters several times. There were monsters that seemed to escape his sight, but in the end, nothing escaped his predation. He told Han Sangdo that wherever he hid or wherever he ran away to, predation will gobble him up no matter what. All of a sudden, Han Sangdo let out a scream. Taehyun's red blades ripped off his body into pieces. The sun had started rising, illuminating the whole city with its warm light. On Hyunsu can be seen laying face down on the ground. He cursed and regretted that he was stabbed by the villain. Even if he's called with many titles such as the Hero of Justice or the Invincible Warrior, he still can't defy death. The giant ogre appeared before him, and it roared loudly. It made a loud noise as it lifted its clenched fist, and it roared again as it punched on Hyunsu. The attack caused so much smoke and debris in the area. It made loud noises as it waited for the smoke and dust to clear out, but to its surprise, On Hyunsu's body was not in the area. A voice spoke, commenting on how On Hyunsu was totally flat on the ground. It was Taehyun, and he used his stealth skill to save On Hyunsu. The giant ogre heard him and turned towards his direction. Taehyun smiled while his aura covered his body, and he uttered that it's no wonder that On Hyunsu is on the ground since it was comfortable. The bright light of the rising sun covered the dark sky. A man and a woman were surprised as they opened the door. Young called out to his mom and dad and announced that he's back home. Taehyun asked his uncle if everything's all right. Tears fell from the eyes of the old couple. They were so relieved that the monsters didn't harm the children. Young laughed and told them that nothing happened. The old couple told them that the house was a mess, as if someone ravaged the place. Young insisted that nothing happened and even asked Taehyun to agree with him. From a bird's eye view, the rooftop of different buildings could be seen. A person watched the news on his mobile phone. The news announced that, as per the government's guidelines, the gate break warning has been completely lifted. Additionally, the news stated that the government considered the possibility of a subsequent outbreak and ordered nearby schools to be closed for a week. As news of survivors gradually came in, the public breathed a sigh of relief. The man and the two women who were with him could be seen wearing hospital gowns as they passed through the hospital's corridor. The nurse, Choi Naeung, was explaining to the police how she woke up in a department store without any recollection of going there. Meanwhile, On Hyunsu was on a live broadcast to announce that he is not the one who took down the giant ogre. He revealed that the true hero is someone else. The news continued to announce that the giant ogre's corpse wasn't discovered and the whereabouts of the villain who attacked the public are unknown. People were concerned that the preventive measures for safety purposes may be insufficient. The person who was watching the news decided to turn off his mobile phone. That person was actually Taehyun. He was happy to know that he had not been mentioned in any of the reports. With a confident and excited expression, he looked ahead. He was standing on the rails while looking at the dark tunnel as he declared that he's ready to advance to the next stage. His status window had been updated with his newly acquired skill. Now he had 3 skills, including the D-rank stealth that required 5 mana. For him, acquiring stealth was an especially great outcome. But due to his current level, he found it difficult to use all 3 skills, as recklessly wielding the skills could deplete his mana in no time, thereby raising his fatigue level. It could end up a devastating move, so he thought of preventive measures, and the best one was to have potions. Potions are elixirs created for various purposes, such as mana or fatigue recovery, but he had an issue to deal with. Potions were expensive. Thus, he decided to hunt to earn money. He went inside the tunnel, and his path was blocked by debris. He went through a small crease to proceed. For him to hunt, he needed legal permission. Actually, the law stated that using skills without legal permission is considered illegal. So it left him with a single option. After going through the narrow passage between the wall, he was able to arrive at his destination, where multiple gigantic monsters gazed at him. The only solution he had was to explore undiscovered dungeons. The monsters spoke and asked how a mere mortal could come into their place. Another monster wondered how the mortal found them. One monster suggested that they should paralyze the mortals so they could have a feast. Taehyun heard all their statements. He commented on how they are such great talkers. He wondered if those monsters were of high intelligence. The notification window showed that the monsters were called the Spider Sisters, and they were of B rank. He expressed how B ranks were not enough to increase his ranks. He wondered if he needed to eat hundreds of them to reach his goal. The Spider Sisters got triggered with this and decided to attack the arrogant human. One of the Spider Sisters had puffy cheeks, and in unison they told him that they are going to eat him alive, and simultaneously they spit out a purple substance on him. The Spider Sisters laughed as if to mock him and asked how he felt. They asked if he felt himself becoming paralyzed. To their surprise, their victim was unaffected. Taehyun's skill called Resistance had been activated. Taehyun seemed to be pleased with the Spider Sisters' useful skill. The Spider Sisters screamed for him to wait, but it was followed by them groaning in agony. A notification appeared stating that he had succeeded in a complete predation. He had obtained a new skill called Paralysis. One of the tall buildings in the area is the headquarters for the new South Korea Player Association. 2 men guard the wooden gigantic door. Inside the building is a woman holding a coffee and 2 men. One man seemed to be nervous. He is Go Tae-wook, the deputy manager of the new South Korea Player Association. A player is defined when an awakened player is legally permitted to use their skills for various objectives such as abyss exploration, dungeon clearing, and so on. Currently, there are 5 player centers of the new South Korea Player Association. New South Korea's largest guilds, or also known as the 4 Great Guilds, are the Fighters, or also known as Undivided, the Crafters called Alchemists, the Mages called the Magicians, and there are the Informants called Nightwalkers. The authorized agency that manages the players, including the 4 Great Guilds, is known as the New South Korea Player Association. In front of the deputy manager is the guild master of the Nightwalkers and also an S-rank player called Yu Ayong, and a man who thanked Yu Ayong for coming, whose name is Ji Jinwei. He is the chairman of the New South Korea Player Association and an S-rank player. He asked Yu Ayong if she discovered something. Yu Ayong confirmed if he was pertaining to a malignant guild. A malignant guild is a criminal organization formed by the most brutal fellows, even among villains. The guild members wear gold rings with 3 skulls carved on them. He handed her a report about the recent movements of the malignant guild and a list of players that they were targeting. Yu Ayong told him that she's definite that he didn't seek her just to receive a document, so she straightforwardly asked what he needs from her. He laughed and asked her if she had any ideas. He admitted that he wanted her opinion on something. He proceeded to ask her when she finished the player test. She's confused by his question, but opted to answer truthfully that it was when she reached the qualifying age at 19 years old. Then she realized something, and the chairman asked her if she thinks a high school student could rival a monster in a fight. The high school student that might be the main topic of their conversation was busy sitting on top of the pile of bodies of the monsters. His backpack is full of crystals from the monsters. He's talking to someone on the phone, asking them if they are the alchemist, with a bored expression on his face. After defeating a whole bunch of monsters, he revealed his agenda to them. He wanted to buy potions. The 7-day school closure order from the gate break ended. Kim Taehyun was occupied during that time together with Yi Young. He had physical training, and aside from that, he also cleared some dungeons inside the building of alchemists, one of the 4 great guilds. Someone was shocked to see so many mana stones, and with that, they regarded their customer as their sweep and coaxed him to trade with them. So that's one of Taehyun's tasks during the school closure, potion trading. Despite that, his overall rank is at C, which includes a ranking of C and skills Stone Skin, Stealth, and Paralysis. He knew he had a long way to go, and yet he still had to go to school. Out of curiosity, his classmates asked him if he had awakened since they heard a rumor that he beat up B. Hyuksu's lackeys. Another classmate added that whatever the case is, Taehyun is in big trouble because things had already escalated. A group of students came rushing to them. Taehyun noticed them. These students caused commotion by throwing and breaking the chairs. They are extremely angry. One of them sat down and casually propped his feet on the table. It was Lee Yoongi. He told Taehyun it's been a while, old friend. Yoongi awakened as an S rank. He is the third generation keyball of the Teeson Group, the conglomerate that sponsors Teeson High School. He's the boss of all the Teeson High's bullies. Taehyun recalled how he was pushed against the wall before he took a closer look at who the bullies were, and among them, he saw Yoongi smirking. Yoongi is the main culprit who ordered B. Hyuksu to harass him for being unawakened. Taehyun forced a laugh by having someone like Yoongi as his friend. He intimidated him as he told him to cut the crap and fuck off. One of Yoongi's lackeys got triggered and called him a bastard as he asked Taehyun if he really knows who he's talking to. All of a sudden, a fist met this student's face. Yoongi punched him and asked him if he did not see that they're having a conversation. Yoongi's attention returned to Taehyun. He told him that he understands him if he is still in high spirits after defeating B. Hyuksu. He released a ball of fire in the air as he advised him to be more careful in acting up in front of him. Kim Taehyun was flustered and amazed as he witnessed the power of an S-rank awakened. Yoongi warned Taehyun to better listen while he's being nice. Deep inside him, Taehyun wondered how Yoongi would face predation, but then a girl interfered and told Yoongi to stop. This girl crushed the hand of one of Yoongi's lackeys who yelled in pain. It was Lim Ah-hyung. She also told Taehyun to stop. Taehyun continued to observe her. Ah-hyung wore many hats, such as the class president and Yoo Ah-young's half-sister. She is also described as a rich family's young lady, a model student, and an S-rank awakened. She had countless nicknames and is expected to earn even more such nicknames. But Taehyun has one problem with her. She's uncompromising as fuck and would not just simply back down. Yoongi acted innocent as he told her that it's like she's insinuating that he's doing something bad. He defended that they're just friends having a chat. Ah-hyung was skeptical of that and asked about how a friend could punch a friend in the face. Yoongi warned her to watch herself. Ah-hyung responded with a threat that she will use force if he didn't leave on his own. She demanded that he quit it and get lost. Taehyun watched them both as they used their powers to intimidate each other. Deep inside Taehyun, he would like them to stop because at that rate, the whole classroom will be a total mess. Yoongi glared at her while Ah-hyung didn't back down. Yoongi broke the tension as he turned away and invited everyone to just stop as he had no intention of fighting. He faced them again while releasing fire in his hands. He asked them if that's what they're expecting him to say, and he prepared himself to throw a huge fireball towards Ah-hyung. But the school bell suddenly rang. It shocked the three of them, and they heard the announcement from the broadcasting club through the speaker. The announcement was that there's a special lecture that will be organized by the Players Association in the main hall, so all students are expected to assemble there immediately. They repeated the announcement twice because of the sudden interruption. The fire in Lee Yoongi slowly extinguished. He returned to glaring at Ah-hyung. Ah-hyung returned the gaze while she anticipated his attack. He scoffed as he leaves the room. He tells her that she's lucky they closed the room's door with a thud. Once they're fully out of sight, Ah-hyung asks Taehyun if he's okay. She was about to tell him that he doesn't have to thank her, but he's no longer at his seat. She was surprised that he's already at the door. Taehyun asked her why she's still standing there, and if she had not heard the announcement to assemble in the main hall, and then he told her that he will be leaving first. Ah-hyung was left dumbfounded. She wondered if Taehyun had always been that way. After a few moments in the main hall, students were curious about what the lecture is all about, especially coming from the Players Association. They wondered if it was related to the gate break. A person on the stage started speaking. He introduced himself as Go Tae-wook, HR Deputy Manager of the Player Association. He announced that he's there for two reasons. One is to apologize for the Players Association's lack of response to the gate break and to provide safety training, and it was followed by the second reason. This is to inform everyone about the changes to the player tryouts for those individuals responsible for shaping the future of the new South Korea Player Association. Upon hearing that, Yoongi got triggered and cursed, and Ah-hyung took a mental note to speak with Taehyun after the ceremony, while Taehyun, without knowing anything, nonchalantly yawned.